And you know the cement that holds each tile in?
Yeah.
Yeah, the cement, you probably have no clue. The cement part anyway. Today we're going to talk about how to not lose hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a pest and building report. We're going to break it down. We'll talk about some tips of what to look out for. But I think what we see most go wrong, people see a report, danger, 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 back out, run away, don't want to go for that property, want to go for something else. Nothing wrong with that, but
there's a lot wrong with that.
You're leaving a lot on the table.
And for your buffoons that don't even know what a building and pest is or don't get a building and pest inspection on a property, you have to listen to this podcast. Let's break it down. You and I have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of building and pest reports. So let's knock it back. This will be a good education one. I'm looking forward to it.
I think let's start with, I've got a list of things that we need to check. And I think giving people an overview is important, I think, for when you're looking at a property. Now, there's multiple things to look out for, of course. Doesn't mean there's so much risk involved, but of course, there's things to be aware of. So if you're buying a property next to a beach, of course, you're going to get corrosion because of the salt in the air. So it's close, if it's close to the water.
So what's corrosion, if you could explain
rust,
what that is?
Rust on metal and rust on other types of, materials as well. Mainly metal, you'll get like color bond and, whatever it might be, might have, steel roof and things like that.
Cool.
So you'll get that along on the eaves, or no, I shouldn't say the eaves, the downpipes, the gutters, roof, if it's got a, color bond roof, fences and things like that as well. And so you get the bit of surface rust or corrosion. And that comes up a lot on the report saying corrosion, and people go, oh my God, that's a structural defect, or it can be depending on the level of it, it can be quite a bad risk or high risk in the report, which doesn't mean it is. It just means a bit of rust. Unless it's fully corroded, the pipes, let's say a downpipe's fully corroded, then of course the downpipe needs to be replaced.
Okay.
Cool. So that happens a lot. Trees around a property. Okay, so if you're maybe inland, like in a big inland city, trees a lot around the property can cause a lot of moisture. So you might see moisture, around the property. The soil gets really, really damp, and then of course it can, close the weep holes, which weep holes are on the side of a property. Helps the property breathe, and when that helps the property breathe, it lets the property vent, and then that means the house doesn't get moisture internally, but not just that, around the external of the property doesn't have high moisture reading, or soil's not really, really loose, and can affect the foundations as well.
Okay, we're going pretty deep here. You're going very technical.
There's type of two things I want to kind of point out when you're looking at from the outside in, because that the environment is quite important of when you're looking at properties.
Yep.
Okay. I guess the next thing is probably roof, and I think you've had a property. I think was in Rockhampton. Did it have any roof issues? Or I know maybe was your mum's property that we purchased in Rockhampton.
Hail? What was damage?
Had hail damage.
Hail damage, yeah.
But then the roof was getting replaced.
That's right.
So in some areas,
you remember this more than I.
Yeah, I know in some areas you have to watch out if there has been a hailstorm or a natural disaster. And for example, when we bought in Rocky 2020, 2021, a lot of the roofs were all damaged. A lot of them going for insurances. We had a clause in for your mum's. I think it was getting replaced, so a whole brand new roof from the insurance, which was fantastic. Yep. But sometimes you get a property and there's capping issues. And I'm going to put pictures up here if you're watching on YouTube, because we'll put some images up to show you what capping means. Capping is like if it's a tiled roof, and the cement that holds each tile in. Yeah. The cement, you probably have no clue. The cement part anyway, that holds a tile in, or on the corners of the tile, that gets all, it's all brittle, and then you have to redo that. Or if it's a steel roof and it's got rust or it's got hail damage, there's images there that, of course, that can be something to be cautious of, because we all know roofs can cost tens of thousands of dollars, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. All right.
Yep.
So roofs are probably something that you need to check.
Yep.
Cool. Bathrooms, I think, is the one that we get hit a lot with. And
You're copying it right now?
Yeah, I'm copying it right now, is moisture readings. Old bathrooms, you get an old house, of course, and it hasn't been renovated. It's going to have high moisture readings sometimes in the walls or in the cavities or, in the shower. That there can be a red flag depending on the level of the high moisture reading. There's normally a meter. You've got a green zone, amber zone, and then, of course, red is catastrophic, of course, sometimes. And when the moisture reading is on the walls, and especially if it's outside of the bathroom walls or the wall that backs onto a shower, if that's, let's say you got the shower wall, then it backs onto a bedroom wall, and there's high moisture reading there, that means that the waterproofing's let go. Waterproofing, for people listening, is a special type of paint or sealer that they paint on the floor and on the wall of where the bathroom and the shower is going to be, so it doesn't, water doesn't seep through, because it eventually kind of does after a while. And when that lets goes, I should say, then that water will start to penetrate and start to have moisture in the property.
And this is a building and pest inspection, or this is a
Building, yeah, that's a building and pest inspection when you're picking this up.
Okay.
So I think it's very important to check these things, because how many properties have repurchasing clients have seen that, and there's been times we said walk away, been times we said okay, it's going to be fine, and then there's been times they've bought the property, 1-2 years go by, it's still fine and nothing's happened to the property. Some clients have bought the property and they've taken on the risk, and the risk has happened. I'm one of those people.
Yep.
Bought the property, took on the risk, got a discount on the property. And we'll talk about how to negotiate it towards the end of this. So if you're listening on how to negotiate on pest and building, how to go about the right way, so many wrong ways you can go about it. But I think the bathroom is probably the one that can cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and it sounds scary. I guess what are just really simple ways, and you might be already touching on this, really, really simple ways to actually work out how bad the damage is. Is it jumping on the phone to the building and pest inspector? Is it talking to trades in that particular space? Like, how does someone who's doing it on their own, what do they do to actually determine? Because your knowledge is a lot different to my knowledge, if I'm honest. I rely on my people because I run an agency, that's fine. But not everyone has the same knowledge that you've just spat out right then. So how would you go about it?
Well, if you've got a family member that is in trades, they can 9 times out of 10, a plumber or someone that's an electrician or carpenter kind of understands a lot about different types of parts of a house. So they should be able to help you with that. But of course, the pest and building inspector is going to be one that you're going to have to rely on if you get an inspector to inspect that property and just ask them. The thing is with inspectors, quite funny. Sometimes they don't even know that well of like how catastrophic that issue is.
Gotcha.
As silly as that sounds, is because they might put a moisture reading and say, hey, this bathroom might be, it's got an issue, we need to fix it. They might say to you, it just needs a regrout or reseal. Regrouting is like kind of like putty or cement, and they regrout the shower in between the tiles. They regrout it so water doesn't get through, or they silicone it. But sometimes that might not be enough. And we've had problems in the past where a pest and building inspector will be like, yeah, it just needs a regrout, reseal. The client does that. 1-2 years later, that property lets go, and they actually have to do a whole bathroom renovation.
When you said the whole bathroom,
they have to rip out the shower.
Gotcha. Okay.
You have to put new shower base. They have to do, maybe new plaster as well.
Okay.
It can just
it's just a schmozzle, yeah.
It can be the more. Sometimes you can open up a can of worms. It's like cutting out rust out of a car. People probably maybe understand this. You see a car's rusted, you start cutting out the rust. All of a sudden, you pull that rust panel off. You look internally, there's more rust, and you're like, "Oh my god, you got to cut that out." Then you pull that off, and there's more.
Just a can of worms.
And that can keep happening with houses. You can rip the base off the floor, and it's like, "Oh, it's cool. We can put another base down." Then you find out then that maybe all the beams are rotten, all the all the foundations. You're like, "Oh god, I've got to change that." So that can happen if the shower's been leaking for quite some time.
Okay, so I mean, someone of a sane mind would listen to what you've just said, and it actually does sound really, really scary. Why don't you just go for a newer property that's just going to not have any of these issues? Do you get building and pest inspections on newer assets? Is it the same process, same issues?
Same process. You're always going to get a new, regardless of if it's a brand new. When I bought one of the first properties I bought off the plan, that was brand new. I got a pest and building report. And to be quite honest, there was a few things that were defects, like in regards to handrails weren't on the stairs and just...
Not major.
Yeah, not major stuff. But you still get stuff that's 10 to 15 years old. There's still going to be issues.
Gotcha.
I would say some of the new properties that we buy, even if it's 10 or 15 years old, I've seen a lot of bathrooms be, under defects because of moisture reading being high, and this not the right works have been, commenced during that build.
Cool. So rule of thumb, always get a building and pest. From there, grab that, speak to, if there are defects, which 9 times out of 10, there's always going to be defects. I just bought an asset clean as anything, still defects, still minor defects. Speak to the building and pest inspector, speak to people that you know in the trade, ask them what they think. Cool. Where are we moving? We're moving to negotiation, because I want to know why you would even buy this asset. What's the benefit of buying an asset that's got moisture reading or whatever it is?
The thing is, you're going to get a report. And I think the mindset people need to change is that a report is supposed to be ugly. It's supposed to protect you as the buyer.
Yes.
And so they're going to put everything in there, as in the inspector is going to look out for you, not the vendor. And so people... That's, of course, a positive thing, but then people take that too far and they're like, the whole property's stuffed.
Take it literal.
We're going to have to replace everything, and that's not the case. So I think for some people that are probably builders or people that are in the trades, they might understand it a little bit more. If anything, sometimes they look at it and go, oh, we need to fix everything. And unfortunately, that's not the case, and you can't get that your way all the time, especially if it's a market that's moving in that right direction. So we'll touch on that in a second. Of course, if the market's booming, you can't get everything replaced because they're going to tell you where they're going. They're like, I'm going back to market and I'll get probably an extra 10 grand or 20 grand because the market's moving forward.
And they will do that. So we've seen that many a times. That's not you just saying that as a tactic. Like that is literally the case. If you go, oh, well, there's 30 items, I want all 30 items fixed and this, I'm hardballing them, you're a fuckwit. Like you're just going to lose the property.
And people do that. Clients,
we see it all the time.
Some
we see it all the
clients try to
time.
do it and we say it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
You're just going to lose. And has to be a win-win. So we'll touch on the negotiation skills, but I think the things that you got to look out for, if it's close to an ocean, you got to make sure, okay, it's going to be corrosion. That's normal. Just make sure it's not going to be catastrophic to other materials. Of course, close to a lot of trees and a lot of bushes around. Of course, that can be high moisture eating around the property as well. So that can have some effect. If not, you can fix that by removing trees. If not, fixing up the yard as well. That's not an issue as well. Bathroom is probably the number 3 or on the list. That's the one you got to be cautious of, I think. And then you got kitchens as well. Kitchens, I would say we don't have too much go wrong with kitchens. What we go wrong is like ovens and cooktops or stovetops not working. We have a lot of kitchen cupboards that will be coming off the hinges and things like that. So it's very minor stuff. So kitchens are pretty good normally, but just look at them as well.
Make sure they're in working order as well.
Yeah, all appliances, aircon, heating, cooling, solar, if you've got solar.
Which your building inspector should be doing.
Well, I remember a story. We bought a property for, what was the client's name? I can't remember the client's name now. All I remember was in Gladstone. We bought this property. We inspected the property, got a pest and building, roller door worked for the garage. Fantastic.
I remember this.
Buy the property.
Mateo?
Nah, it was another client.
Okay.
We buy the property and we're about to settle, goes to pre-inspection. Lucky, you always get a pre-inspection. So people listening, you get a pest and building done, you get works done by the vendor, okay? You get that inspected again to make sure that those works have been completed.
At the pre-settlement inspection.
At the pre-settlement.
Yep.
And if those works are too out of scope for the property manager that's doing the pre-inspection, you get the pest and building person to go back in there.
What do you mean by too out of scope? What's that mean?
So, let's say there's been some roof repairs. Let's say there's been some gutter repairs. Let's say there's been some, new reno.
Oh, and she can't get it. He or she.
He or she doesn't understand that. It's not their scope of works. Like they're a property manager. They're not going to know if the roof has been done correctly.
Gotcha.
You get the pest and building inspector back in there and go back in there and inspect the property.
And pay for it if you need to.
Yeah, pay for it.
Because if it's $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 worth of works, to be a tight ass again and to go, I'm not paying another inspector to go out there for $300 or whatever it is. Yeah, just crazy. Okay, that yes. And so with this particular roller door, what happened?
We get the pre-inspection. We go in there. They check it. It's not working. With 1 day before we settle, we go, nah, we're not settling. It needs to be in working order. We had in the contract appliances must be in working order, so that was under appliances. Or electronic, anything that was electrical and, that had to do with, appliances and stuff like that had to be in working order. We go back to them, we say, you need to fix this. Next thing, they have to install a new remote, motor, probably, $1,000 or so, whatever it may be to install that motor.
So just to pause on this, because there's a few things happening here. All appliances must be in working order. That's at contract time. So if you're going into this...
You've got to put that as a condition, but...
Correct. At the time that you go under contract. So this is well before you even get a building and pest inspection. So that's been done there. You get the building and pest inspection. You come up with a list of defects. There might have been 30 things. You've gone in and you said, let's be realistic. Let's fix these 10 things. Then making sure that you go pre-inspection settlement, settlement inspection, and go and get the pest and building inspector to go in again along with the property manager to do that.
Yep.
Awesome.
Sometimes you can get 9 times out of 10, you can get away with the property manager. Fantastic. Awesome. And just get them to inspect it. Okay.
Cool.
So we do both.
Cool.
Just depends on the scope of the works.
Cool. So just for at home, just to understand that there's many things happening here. And obviously doing this hundreds and hundreds, how many times? 700 times. You learn things every single time. You learn what you can put into a contract. You learn what you can't put into a contract. I still don't know why people don't work with professionals when they go out and purchase assets at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. But save yourself the money if you think you can do it.
Yeah.
Go on.
And I guess the next thing that we see a lot is termites. You buy in Queensland, you buy in some certain areas, there's termites. Some places like Tassie, there's no termites. You go ask for a termite inspection, they'll laugh at you at the pest and the building inspector, because there's no pest inspector there. But termites are very important because I guess if you find a house with termite damage, once again, we'll put some images up with houses that we've purchased with termite damage and we've walked away from, you've got to walk away from that. Now, in saying that, don't take everything for word here that I say, if it's got termites, you need to walk away.
That's right, the backyard.
How many properties we buy in Queensland, it's got termites in the backyard. So inactive or active. So if it's inactive, it was once upon a time there. If it's active, it's there now. We see them in the trees. We see them in the fences. You buy a house as well that's concrete slab, brick externally. Of course, it's pretty difficult for them to get into the house. If it's a house that's probably, house that's on stumps and it's a, wooden house, I would say it's a little bit more of a chance as well. But in saying that, if the house has had a barrier treatment, which is like a treatment around the property to stop termites coming in, fantastic. And just look at that. If it's up to date, that's awesome. That's one way to, combat it. If it was done a while ago, but it hasn't been updated, it's still fine. If there's no termites in the house, fantastic. I've had times, I remember we had a termite in the garage and I was ripping out the, all the timber barriers in the wall, and it was like, okay, this is catastrophic, walk away.
And you walked away?
Walked away, yeah. Because there's no point buying a property like that. It's just too much risk. You can remove them and it'll be fine. And sometimes there's great negotiation tools, or someone that's got, a little bit more experience, they can take that on. Like, for example, someone like that's got 5 or more properties, they understand that they can remove the termites from the property, and you can probably negotiate and get a good amount of money off. So you can use it to your advantage, the tactic.
Yeah.
And the property will probably still be fine. If you remove it, treat it, and then put a barrier in place, you should be fine. Okay, just get the property inspected once every year as well, which probably costs a couple $100.
I wouldn't even go into if you've got 5 or more property. I actually don't think it's a number of property.
Well,
I think it's more a mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset, but of course that comes with experience too for some people.
Yeah, I know, but let's say, I don't know, I can't pick a client, but a client of ours who's just got the mindset of like, no, we'll get it fixed. And has just got that investor mindset of shit's going to go wrong because it's a business. You don't have to have any properties. But if you just look at that and go, that's cool. I'm happy to take the risk. If I can negotiate $15,000 off the property, I've done my research, I know the trades, I know it's going to cost me $7,000 to remove, I'll go for it. I don't think, don't listen to that specifically and go, I need to have this before I can, it's depending on your mindset, it's depending on how well you understand the issue. But yeah, okay, it's cool. And we've also had clients pull out when there's inactive termites on the back fence of a backyard, right? Which is obviously, we see that's not a risk. So different risk tolerance, different risk profiles for many different people. Don't look at termites. Don't look at anything that you've said as like, no, danger, leave, stop. Because a lot of the times you won't end up buying a property because, as you said.
That's right. You're going to get so many things wrong with a property. It's secondhand, it's old, it's 20, 30, 40 years old. The more older it is, of course, the more issues. And the less, the more it's not in shape, it's going to, have a lot of red flags to some degree. Yep. I think one thing I want to touch on is swimming pools. I think swimming pools, if you've got a property with swimming pools, we've purchased properties with swimming pools, they can be a liability at times, just not being maintained or, installed correctly.
Headache.
You need to get them checked and make sure that as well they're at council level rating too. So, for example, sometimes a pest and building inspector can only do so far after the scope of works, but if you get another inspector in to inspect the pool, give it a leak test.
Okay.
Yeah, to make sure the property, is had a leak test done. The electricals side of things, like the pump and all that sort of stuff, is working on for the for the water and the chlorine, and then making sure it's as well being safety compliant with the council.
Gotcha.
We bought a property. We had inspected the property. The pump was working at the time for the pool, and then when it came to pre-inspection, the property pump wasn't working. Once again, we picked that up. So luckily we done those checks. If we didn't even do, a water compliance check and make sure the pump wasn't working and all that sort of stuff, and we just said, we'll just do a normal council check and see if it's, been approved, which it had been, and just left it at that. Next thing you know, this pump's not working. There's thousands of dollars once again.
Yep.
So pools are not, I don't mind buying a property for pool. I haven't got one personally. I think it's, it's up to the client, but they can always add that extra bit of value as well for, down the track.
Cool. Okay. I like it. Awesome.
There's that many things I can touch on here. Switchboard, I think, is the last one I probably want to touch on. House that's very old, it's got an old switchboard, the power point or switchboard, and where the electricities are and all the fuses. if that's old and needs to be updated because of new appliances and, it's got, they're installing extra, maybe a bigger kitchen or an extra appliances into the house, like more air cons or split systems, sometimes that can't handle it. I've had it before where we've bought a property, client has decided to put some air cons through the property. Next thing you know, need to upgrade the switchboard. And that was something that, at the time, you don't know these things. You don't know what the client wants to do. But it was later on that happened, like about a year later. They're like, this is what we've run into. So we learned from them, like, okay, if it's an older property, it's got an old switchboard, sometimes we put that as we want to negotiate on that.
Cool.
It's hard to negotiate on something that's not broken or wrong, doesn't have an issue at that point in time, because you can't get a property that's old, let's say a 50-year-old house that we do still buy these days. You see an old switchboard, you can't say, hey, I want to upgrade on the switchboard. They'll say, it's working. So
yeah, it's not on a defect list. It hasn't been popped up. It's completely working. Yeah, gotcha. That'll be a difficult one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's just a few. Obviously, there's a whole heap. Again, I think you've gone with the scary part of it first. I think a lot of people will actually listen to this and go, shit, do I need to be a building professional to actually buy a property? You don't. That is the reason why building and pest inspections exist. That is why conveyances exist. That's why buyer's agents exist. But you need to have a pretty good grasp of a lot of this stuff. You really do. To be a professional.
You do, because every state has different rules. So like in Queensland, you buy a property, any defect that's on the pest and building report, you can walk away from the property. You can't do that in, say, WA. It has to be structural, major structural defect. And structural isn't like, it's got high moisture reading in the bathroom. That's not structural. That's like maybe something's got to do with the roof, the timbers in the roof. That's not, something's wrong there. Something's wrong with the patio. Maybe the beam's been rotted from termites or, from corrosion. These are things that they're actual structurally holding the property up. So that's the only time you can walk away from the property. Tassie's a little bit different. Tassie's like it has to be a percentage. So, for example, you can negotiate on the percentage. So this is where, of course, you need to know the laws. And your conveyancer should tell you this. Some conveyancers don't tell anyone. Like in Tassie, you can negotiate saying, if the property has 1% of the purchase price of defects, we can walk away. If it's up, so for example, let's say it's 1%.
Property, 5K, yep.
5K. So you have to have 5K worth of defects. So you have to get it, then, you get the defects, you get a plumber out there or a trippy or handyman, get a quote.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. You'll be surprised. A lot of those people actually don't want to overquote because as well, they will get in trouble, and that's happened before, The people go, just put a little bit more so we can back out the property. And they'll be like, no, because my license is at risk.
Of course.
So see, if you didn't know that in Tassie, you can't just back out. Victoria, once again, it's not, it has to be a major defect or for you to pull out. So it's something that you need to know when you're going into these type of different regions.
Absolutely. 110%. Again, there are still people out there that want to get into property but are not willing to pay for the right advice. Shameless plug, but not even to what we do, but just in general, having a buyer's agent, I still think is up there with the accountant, your broker, and your conveyancer as the level of importance that you need to build up a portfolio. Because understanding this shit, I can tell you, I've bought how many properties? I do not understand building to your level, but my last 8 properties that I've bought have all been through a buyer's, and I don't deal with any of this stuff. Now, I get a report, there's a plumbing report, building and pest inspection, there's a electrical report. They're all 40, 50 pages long. If you have the right agency or have the right team around you, you should have it. And what I do, you get a 1-page report with here's 40 things that are wrong with the property. Here's the 7 things that we're going to go for. And I go, great. And get these 3 other things fixed. That's it. That's the level of conversation. Yeah. Obviously, you can go a lot more detailed if you're that way inclined. But not having any idea of what the different state laws are, what's an actual problem, what thing is going to cost you, I think is madness. To be buying assets and not have any idea, you're just going to lose money.
Yeah.
So I really like it. Awesome knowledge.
So if we're going to go down the path of, okay, let's negotiate and let's start this process, number one is you create a document, like you said, and put all the issues on that list.
Yep.
Don't pick issues that are stupid issues like, there's a pipe leaking underneath the sink that probably needs to be tightened, or there's things that could become a potential risk. Like, I see a lot like the flexi lines behind the toilet that connect to the water, those flexi lines that you see. they common to break, and if they break, they'll flood the whole house. Okay, you normally have to change them every few years or 5 years. I forgot the time frame of what it is. People put stuff like that down. They put like, oh, there's a bit of corrosion on the gutters. We want to replace the whole gutters. It's like, oh, there's holes throughout one side of the house with gutters, and you're like, okay, that's fine, but is there bigger issues? Don't just put silly issues like, you know, door stoppers are missing or
$50 issues.
just $50 issues. Pick the biggest issues with the property. Okay, because the biggest issues are the ones that will bite you in the backside if you don't try and get something back for them. And if you put 50 things on that list, what do you think the vendor is going to do when you go there? Tell you where to go.
Depending on the market. If you're in a hot market, hotly contested market, yes. But if you've got a desperate seller, of course, you're going to be in better luck. But okay, yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so that's the situation. Put it in a doc. What do we do next?
So you got it in the doc. From there, you need to get the advice from the pest and building inspector,
right,
or your team if it's a buyer's agent. I say to all our clients, don't rely on our buyer's agent. You need to call the pest and building inspectors, and all our team does that because we're not the professional in the sense of the pest and building inspector because we have the license. They are. So they're the ones that are going to understand about the report. You know, people will sit there and they'll rely on our buyer's agent and they keep saying, speak to the inspector, because they are going to educate them. And it's all good to rely on us, but once again, we can only pick the items that we kind of suggest and what they suggest as well, the inspector, and then negotiate on. But you need to understand that. So if you don't understand it, and every time you're buying a property and then you're not educating yourself, you're not learning through that process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And yeah, just to reiterate that, because a lot of clients would hear that, say, well, hang on, I sat with my buyer's agent, I ran through everything, right? I've sat with Ryan and Austin and sat with all our buyer's agents who bought me properties, and they've ran me through it pretty detailed as well. Yes, you are still going to get that because we give a shit and our buyer's agents give a shit, but you're 100% right. We are there to find you the best asset. A building pester is literally have one job: tell you everything, run through it all. He's the person that's actually gone out on site, looked at everything. So it's essentially Chinese whispers. He or she tells our buyer's agent, we then pass it on to you. So the best way to actually go about it, speak to the building and pest inspector if you're not working with the buyer's agent, and if you are as well.
We get clients that don't even speak to the pest and building inspector. They go, it's moisture reading in the bathroom. Oh, no, we're going to walk away. And I'm like, just call the inspector. Call the inspector. He goes, look, it's not that bad. It's pretty good. It's on the moderate side. And I can see there's no grout. It needs a reseal. Don't worry. Some of them have been, in builders in the past, so they actually have that experience as well, which has been great. And we have that relationship. So we're like, just call them, and then sometimes this is, I'm jumping a few chapters here, but you get a report, there's issues. Okay. Before you do anything, let's get a quote. Let's get a professional. So if it's got, let's just say hypothetically, it's got moisture reading, it needs something to do with the bathroom, get a plumber out there or a tiler, see what that looks like and what's the issue. Can it be fixed? Yes or no? If it needs a bathroom renovation, give us a quote. Is something wrong with the gutters? Get a quote on the gutters. If there's something wrong with the kitchen, get a quote on the kitchen. Don't just go and run away from the property because you might be able to get some, like I said, you might be able to get some money off. There's going to be four outcomes that's going to happen. 1, you walk away from the property. 2, you get money back. 3, you get them to fix it. 4th, you get them to fix it and get some money back. How many times that's happened to us? It's like they will fix 4 things on the list. The other 3 things will give you some money back.
Yeah.
I had a client, we bought a property. We overpaid for the property. We said, we'll give you an extra 20, 30 grand on top of it. Okay. I think we picked it up for like 470 at the time. And we said, we want all these things fixed. They put new carpet, new paint. They done some fencing. They done all this work to the property. Now you might think, oh, you're paying an extra 20, 30 grand on what the asking price was. But we got literally a property that was fully renovated. Awesome. Like even new blinds. Like they went to
Who was this for?
Geraldton. Huh?
Who was that for? Geraldton property.
But one of our clients, yeah.
Okay.
I remember Austin. I was with Austin. I was going to ask Austin.
SK?
I think so. No.
Yeah,
No, I don't think it was their property. It was another client.
Anyway.
So we ended up getting that all done and was like, okay, awesome. Like that can happen.
Yeah.
Happens a lot. So there's 4 outcomes that are going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
The absolute worst mindset, and excuse me to our clients if you get offended by this, but the actual worst investor mindset, and dare I say, you maybe not be an investor, or at least in property, if you are going to have this mindset, is just shitting yourself. Like you just got to stay cool. You are running a business when you become an investor. To just shit yourself and go, and stop. And we've had so many clients do this. We also in-house, dare I say, and again, I'm sorry if this offends you, not everyone should be an investor. Not everyone should be a business owner because you need to be able to handle stress, and this I mean, I don't look at a distress. You don't look at a distress because we've done it many a times. But even as your first deal or second deal or fifth deal, 10th deal, whatever it is, to just react and go, oh, we got to pull it. I'm scared. Like, it's just a horrible mindset to have. So just change it. Just change it, especially with this stuff. Because as you just said, you've got 4 options. Let them play out. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
And from that point there, when you get to that point there, get some quotes. Like if it's still uncertainty and like, oh, we're going in blinded, get some quotes.
Yeah.
To just give you that reassurance.
That's clarity as well.
Yeah, it's just clarity.
Is that the third one? So you've 1 pager.
List out the ones that you want to. Then 1 pager. Speak to the inspector. Then pick the items that you're going to select. It might be 7 items, 10 items. Let's just say it's 7 items. Then you got 4 outcomes that's going to happen, whatever it may be. From that point in time, if you haven't got any clarity, get a plumber, electrician, whoever it may be. Get a quote. You get your quote. Okay, you got your ammo now. Okay. Then next step is you go to the agent or your buyer's agent or yourself. You go to the agent and you say, hey, agent, here's a report. You send it to them. These are the issues with the report, okay? As you can see, I've got a list of 40 issues. I want to negotiate on these 7 issues, okay? I've got a quote done for some of the works for the property. As you can see, it's going to cost me 10 grand to fix this property, okay? This is what I want as an outcome. Your outcome can be I want them to fix it. You can say I want 10 grand or even more, 15 grand off the property. You got to be realistic. And then, of course, see what they say. If you go there, imagine you went there and you say, I've got 40 items that are wrong with the property, I need you to fix them all. They're going to tell you where to go because they're already getting angry, they're getting emotional. Mm-hmm. This becomes psychological. You start going, okay, look, there's 40 issues. I'm only asking for 7. Here are the repairs that are going to cost me. Can you come back to me? I want $10,000 off or whatever it may be, or I want you to fix the property.
Cool. Right? Cool. I might just rewind all the way back at contract stage. This is all, and I don't even know why we didn't mention it. This is all off the back of the fact that we have put subject to whatever the clauses are, which we did not mention that. Pest
and building, of course. Sometimes we put a plumbing and electrical inspection in there.
Yes.
That's good for a peace of mind. Sometimes it's hard to get that in if the market is starting to pick up because if there's a few buyers lurking around and they'll be like, we're going to take the best offer with the best conditions. If you've got too many conditions, they'll tell you where to go. So that's where you sometimes just go, you rely on your pest and building report.
Yeah. But always subject to that. Otherwise, any of this stuff that we're talking about is all out the window. So you need to be subject to your building and pest inspection. Now, that's fine. That's at the start. We probably do, I don't know if we have, but have we got a email template or anything that we have that we would send out to an agent to kind of negotiate? Have we got anything like that or no?
We kind of got an email template. Yeah, it's nothing flash, but I guess if people want something, we can give them something. It's pretty straightforward. If you go on chat and you say, I'm responding to an email to an agent, I've got a pest and building report. This is my outcome. This is what the issues are, but this is what I want fixed. This is what I want in remuneration, and they'll give you something. It's nothing too crash hot.
And you would go directly to the agent or you go through your conveyancer to go to their conveyancer?
If you're buying the property and you bought off the agent, you got a bit of a relationship, I would go straight to the agent.
Yep.
So you have that, they'll pass it back onto their client, where the conveyancer can be a bit like standoffish and be like, no, we're not going to fix anything, and they don't understand who you are, and it's blurred lines as well. You're just sending a text or an email. It just doesn't really. Sometimes people.
Yeah.
The
There's
way
non-human. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
no relationship.
You go back to that agent, and you need to be a win-win. If you go, listen, there's 40 issues. Here's the pest and building. Here are the quotes of fixing it. I only want 7. There's a win-win there.
Pretty logical as well. Yep.
It's just logical. You got to be strategic with this. From that point on, this is where, of course, you can go back and forth. And then the negotiation might come in like, we'll give you $8,000. And you start negotiating. Mm-hmm. And that's where, of course, you just got to try and end at a point where you want to be, at and where they want to be at as well. What I will say is when you buy a property as well, if you pay for that little bit more, and let's say you're the highest bidder, of course, you've won the property, but you've paid it at a price that they kind of wanted to get. Mm-hmm. And you've done your inspection the visual inspection at the beginning, mm-hmm. and those things that weren't on that list that you picked up as well, you can use that to your advantage. And because you've paid a bit more of a premium, then you can, of course, get that in return. You know how many clients we've bought a property for? We knew about the issues. We got a discount on the property. We got the pest and building report. That came up on the report. Then they want to get more money off the property because there's issues still with there was an issue still with the bathroom. We knew there was an issue with the bathroom. That's just greed. They've gone to the vendor. That's happened before, and the vendor just said, "Get out of here, take it or leave it." And there was no negotiating. There was other things wrong with the property. They could have gone back, and I remember this vividly. I was with Ryan. They could have got the other 4 things or 3 things on that list fixed, but no, they wanted to put that on and still go, no, it's going to cost us more.
Yeah,
It's going to cost us more. We got the property even $10,000 or $20,000 off purchase price, but we still want to negotiate. And it's like, no, that's not a win-win.
Yeah.
You can't be greedy. If you're going to be greedy, you're going to cop it in the back end.
Yeah, there you go. Enjoy. Nice visual for the community. And also I want to because a lot of people, they've gone through let's say if you're working with a fresh start, right? Takes us, 3 to 4 weeks to find an asset, to buy an asset. Then there's usually a 3 to 4 week period of building and pest. So that's 8 weeks, right? I don't know if you are going to touch on this, but if you're not, perfect, we'll touch on it now. 8 weeks. A lot of people, and then people have paid for, potentially already paid their insurance. I mean, you could get that backed out if you obviously pull out of the property. They've paid for building and pest. They've had their contracts reviewed. They're 8 weeks into the process and they'll go, oh, fuck it. I'll pull out of the property and I'll go find another property. And the amount might because of a $3,000 fix or a $5,000 fix or whatever have you, right? Depending on how you went with the negotiation. What people don't necessarily understand that if you are in a hot market, 8 weeks out of the market, plus another, okay, let's pull out of the property and let's go for another 4 weeks. So that's 3 months out of the market, plus you've paid for building and pest. That's tens of thousands of dollars. So you've just got to understand that as well. The first option of just let's pull out because they're not negotiating, it actually will end up costing you a lot more money. So you just need to think specifically about that. I've had many conversations, many clients regarding this.
Yeah.
So yeah, people don't realize that. People just go, okay, we'll pull out. Building pests aren't cheap as well, especially if you get multiple. Electrical, plumbing, it's $1,000 more.
Yeah, $1,000 or more. So that's it really. I guess you got to make it a win-win. You got to go there with evidence, facts, hear the reports, hear the quotes, go back, be reasonable. I always say to the agent, what's the chances of getting this off? These are the issues, and just leave it on them and go back. And then, if the vendor is, you will get the ones that the vendor are being a bit of a pain in the backside to deal with, and they're being quite, they don't want that win-win. It's like, just take it or leave it. You can keep pushing with your conveyancer. I would always push back with the conveyancer, push back with evidence, go back to the agent and just kind of say, mate, like, what's going on? This has happened. These are the issues, and just fight them. Because if you're not going to get anything and it's being very unfair and one-sided, then of course I understand people's point. And then that's a point where it's like, okay, do we take this property or not? But once again, you got to look at it. If it's been 8 weeks already, like you said, market can move by 4 or 5% by then, and you're already going to be paying more as well. So it's sometimes, you just take a slap on the wrist and you move on and you take the property. There's times you say, hey, I'm going to walk away.
Yep. Love it. Awesome. Once that's happened, once you've gone to the agent, once you've given them the facts, negotiations occurred, they've come back to you, they said, yeah, cool. What happens there? What do you have to do?
And they approved it?
Yeah, it's approved.
It's approved, then you get it in writing through email, okay? From there, you get closer towards the end of settlement, you get that pre-inspection done. That pre-inspection, you just get your agent to go back in or your PM, or you get the inspector to go back in and just check if those works have been completed. If you agreed on work, if you agreed on money off, then of course there's nothing for them to, I guess, the inspector to go back in there, but you still get your PM to go in the property anyway, because you'll be surprised. There's been times we've gone to a property, I think it was Rob and Caitlin, we bought a property and I think they got an inspection done before settlement. The aircon wasn't working. Right. So it was working. We've done the inspection, or the pest and building and electrical. Right. But then we, before we settlement, we went in there and just, it wasn't working. Then they had to go fix it. So just things like that.
So contracts as well, right? There's got to be contracts updated. There's got to be things, amended to the contract, correct?
No, not to the contract. It's just in writing.
So okay, so there's nothing actually, if they're reducing purchase price, it doesn't need to be amendment.
If it's only a small, there'll be a bit of they'll work it out through the settlement fees. Okay. If it's a significant amount, like 10, 20,000, we've had 50,000 off before, they might have to do a new contract with a new purchase price because it's just too much to amend maybe.
Yep.
So that does happen, but 9 times out of 10, you don't have to amend anything to the contract.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I think there's actionable items there as well. I think the biggest piece of this is like, you need to treat this like a profession. It's pretty simple. There's a reason why we exist. There's a reason why real estate agents probably were having a better time selling properties before buyers agents really did exist, because buyers agents know what they're doing, right? people will get
Not
screwed
every
from this.
buyer's agent. We had a client. They bought a property that was in a flood zone. Didn't do checks. There was issues with the property. They ended up selling that property.
Yeah, well, yeah, sorry. I probably
you
should
get-
say
you
not a
get-
buyer's agent that got their license out of a cereal box. Not that the license means anything really. It's
How much you care?
it's how much you care, but it's also how much you understand property. You're going to know very, 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 so much more than what I would know just because you've got that engineer mind or that mindset. You understand assets. You understand structure. I haven't. I'd be a horrible buyer's agent if I'm honest. But someone who does understand it, you need to understand it to get a roll at Fresh Start, right? You need to understand property. You need to understand the process. To do this on your own, I think, is madness. I really do. Maybe I'm biased, but
Well, at the end of the day, like I said, can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if you do it wrong,
literally,
of course, some people will go out there and won't even get a report, and that's scary. So I do not recommend that.
buy at auction and rock up on the day like I did the first ever time. That was a fucking nightmare.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
Awesome.
So that's it, I guess. Do your checklist, look over those things, flooring, roofing, flooring. Oh, I didn't touch on that, but I know we're coming to the end anyway. But, you buy a house, it's not on a concrete slab. Let's say it's, on stumps. The floor can be sinking in one end, So I know you're not there if you're inspecting an interstate, but that's where your pest and building inspector will come in. Kitchen, bathroom and roofing is probably one of the biggest ones that, there's a lot of money involved there. Roof doesn't really add any value. Put a new roof on a house, it's not going to increase the value of the house.
Yep.
Bathroom and kitchens will if you do renos, of course, but you still want to avoid it if you can't afford it. So just do your checks. Pools, termites, compliances on appliances are in order and nothing's wrong with them. PowerPoints and everything. Just check the property correctly. Get the right inspector.
Yeah, you got to rely on your team. That's the biggest thing.
And listen to them. Call them up. Learn through the process. If you don't want to learn through the process, you will learn the hard way.
Yeah.
So
stick to stocks or.
And make sure you just win. It's a win-win situation. Don't go in there with 20 things. I remember one client wanted $70,000 off the property. I laughed. I said, mate, we're not getting $70,000. Like, just don't even, if we say that to the agent, they're going to get angry. Then if you go back to them with a realistic offer, they're going to go back and be like, what stuff this guy? We're not going to give him anything. Yeah. So just, if you be nice at the beginning and you be reasonable, you'll get a reasonable outcome.
Art of the deal.
Yep.
Love it. Thank you, Frank. To the viewers, get your team around you. If you have not got your team around you, a rock solid inspector that you'd be interviewing people in the area. Rock solid conveyancer who knows the state law, and everything around that particular state that you're buying in, because they are very different. If you've got a buyer's agent, and make sure you put subject to. Don't go into anything without putting subject to.
Pest and building, you can put a subject to plumbing and electrical, okay, which is great. Of course, if it's a hot market, sometimes can't add that in. Subject to appliances in working order.
Yep, and finance, of course.
But
get a rock solid team and you really don't have to think about many of this stuff. So thank you very much. To your success. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.